Welcome to the RD2BE podcast. Each week we sit down with a different registered dietitian nutritionist to showcase the diversity of opportunity in the dietetics profession. Our aim is to dismantle the notion that there is a traditional career path. I'm Carl Barnes, the registered dietitian behind the scenes of RD2BE.
And I am Jenna Warnock, the RD2BE host. Our RD guests share their stories, career paths, and advice to help students like us succeed in the profession. Welcome back to another week of the RD2BE podcast. I'm your host, Jenna, and we're super excited to kind of feature a real life example of the new ACEND Advanced Practice Doctoral Standards, because we recently had an episode with Dr. Rayanne Abusaba where she covered the new doctoral standards that ACEND is kind of putting out for nutrition and dietetics, specific for registered dietitians. And that provided a really great episode with the framework of just understanding what the structure of it is. But what I really wanted to do was kind of have a program director with firsthand experience with these new standards to kind of go through what the process is, what the experience looks like if you were to apply for one yourself, and to really be immersed in what it would look like in a real life scenario. So not only do we have a program director who has implemented these new doctoral standards, but it is the first program to be implementing these doctoral standards. And so we're super excited to have Dr. Corri Hanson, and she's the professor and executive program director of medical nutrition at the University of Nebraska's Medical Center. And we're super excited to have her to kind of describe what these new standards look like and how it can actually be helpful in an applicable way for students. So thank you so much for joining us, Dr. Hanson.
Thanks for having me, Jenna. Excited to talk about it.
Yes, me too. And so the first question, just that we kind of get a little bit better of getting to know you, is what led you to your current position as the professor and executive program director at University of Nebraska Medical Center?
Well, how much time do you have? I mean, that could take up the entire podcast in and of itself. I've been around for a really long time. Let's just probably longer than most of your listeners have been alive. So it's been a long story, and it's been a journey for sure. And one of the cool things about it is that I think I've really gotten to see the evolution of the profession, and I can speak firsthand to some of the reasons that really have shaped my belief in the fact that we do need something like an accredited advanced practice doctorate. But I did my training XX number of years ago, a very long time ago, in an internship program, and took a clinical job directly after that. Worked mostly inpatient, a little bit of outpatient in home care, but mostly inpatient critical care. Worked for a few years, went back and finished my master's degree. And then as time went on, eventually I ended up working in a newborn intensive care unit, a NICU. And so taking care of premature infants is still very near and dear to my heart. And one of the things that I was tasked with doing when I started working in that unit was really evaluating the practice of the unit and leading a committee that was going to implement evidence-based practice changes in order to improve outcomes in the unit. So I was overseeing the changes that were made in the nutrition care of premature infants. And we did the project, we collected some data, and things looked really, really good. When we had made some changes, we had really improved the outcomes for premature infants. And so we decided to take the next step and write that up and publish that. And this was really my first exposure to research. And so we did that. We wrote it up. We published it. It received a lot of attention nationwide. A lot of other NICUs were interested in learning more and in implementing this in their units. And that's when I decided this is what I want to do with the rest of my career. It was an honor and a privilege to take care of premature infants every day, individually. Once I published that and other places were now implementing it, I felt like I have now impacted the care of premature infants outside of my unit, and I want to keep doing that. So I went back, finished my PhD, have had, somewhat of a research career where I've kind of continued on that track doing research and publishing. But now a lot of my job is training the next generation of clinicians, which I think is the most important legacy I will have, for sure. So that's what has led me here. I think what has just led me here is that path in seeing firsthand what we do, believing in what we do, seeing the practice advance over time, and now being in a position where I can lead that as far as working within the education system to create these new advanced practice doctorates and create pathways for our students and clinicians.
No, that's definitely a beautiful answer. And I think it just shows the circle of life of any career where a lot of the times when you've truly maximized, and not just maximized in the you hit the ceiling, but in the you've really kind of immersed yourself in the career that you're interested in, it really does take you back to once you're the student, you become the teacher. And that's just kind of the natural progression. And it's great to hear that with your own experience of seeing what published work really does amount to significantly in the evidence-based practice, because you kind of do hear, at least in some sort of academia, where it's like, oh, the goal is just to like pump out research and that's it, just kind of like to hit the marks on research just to get the number of publications. But I think it's really important too to note that the publications do matter and they can have positive implications. And it's great to hear how you saw that firsthand and how it expanded you to being the program director at the University of Nebraska's Medical Center. And specifically, and I think even with the things that you did describe, it really does make a natural sense as to why you would gravitate towards the Advanced Practice Doctorate for Nutrition and Dietetics. But what made your program want to be the first to move forward and try it out with ACEND? Like, what were the motivations? What did the process look like? I'm really interested, just to hear how that was.
It's kind of a two-pronged answer, I think. So we had been considering this for a while. There are other clinical doctorates, different kind of doctorates for nutrition out there in the country. There's always the PhD route for people who are interested in that kind of a career. But we had really been considering an advanced practice type of doctorate just in our own minds, on my faculty, really thinking, we really believe that the profession has advanced to a point where we need that next step. And we wanted to be part of creating that next step for people. I often, when I give talks about things like this, and like maybe specifically to answer the question, why do we need this? Like, why do people think we need this advanced practice doctorate? I have a picture that I show that is when I was training, there was the recommended dietary allowances. And there was a book, you got a book, and that was part of what we got of students. You got a book. It was probably about this big. Some people, if this is RD2BE, the young people probably won't remember this. But anybody older listening would probably remember like this orange and blue book that was about this big. Seriously, this big. That was the RDAs. That was pretty much the sum of our nutrition knowledge around micronutrients and macronutrients 35 years ago. One small book. Now the RDAs expand across at least 11 volumes at last count that I know of. Some of them calcium, vitamin D, and phosphorus, the books this big. That's what we have to know. That's what we have to teach. That's what we're representing now when we interact with our interprofessional teams. This is our wheelhouse. The amount of knowledge that we are accountable for now when we are representing our profession, working with our interprofessional team, taking care of our patients and clients has grown tremendously, as has our ownership of it. We're at the table so much more than we were 30 years ago. So that, we need to not just expect that people have the opportunity to learn new things on their own. We need to create opportunities for them. So we had been talking about it and about how to go about this and what this type of advanced practice degree would look like. To be honest, the timing just aligned with ACEND. I was having other conversations at our institution with different partnering with maybe other professions have doctoral degrees. I was talking about maybe partnering with the PAs or, somebody like that. Like, can we offer some sort of interprofessional doctorate degree? And then when ACEND was putting together the committee for the standards for the advanced practice doctorate, then I was all in on that. And so it was just the timing that aligned and allowed us to move forward with accreditation. We knew we wanted to do it. We believe in accreditation. Obviously, we're an accredited entry to practice master's degree program. And so that it was the right place, doing the right thing in the right place at the right time. I think that made it work so well, which really allowed us, when you talk about why did we want to be the first, I don't think we set out to be the first. It was very easy for us to be the first because we had already been doing some of the legwork to get the degree established. What would it look like? What would courses look like? Things like that. It was just a matter of aligning with the ACEND standards as they moved forward. But that was something we were very committed to and very much wanted to do.
No, awesome. And it's great to kind of hear the right place and right time happen at the same time and see how it's like matriculated into, having your first cohort and already having it up and running, which is super exciting. And you already did mention how there are already like doctorate in clinical nutritions out there. There's already some programs that are kind of implementing this advanced practice doctoral nutrition program, like for example at Rutgers or things like that. But what sets this program apart, or what kind of distinguishes it as being the first advanced practice doctorate with accreditation through ACEND? And
Yes.
there's a couple of other segue questions with that, but first starting with that, like what sets it apart?
Well, I think that yeah, and certainly if I segue off, you can pull me back with some of your segue questions too. Um, One of the reasons that this program in general maybe stands apart from some of the existing programs is in its area of emphasis. One of the things that we took very seriously was our commitment to meet students where they are. And so many of the clinical doctorates that are out there are just that. They're clinical doctorates, and they're fantastic. They provide fantastic education to students. If you want a strong clinical emphasis, I would have absolutely no hesitation saying go to Rutgers. They do an incredible job. One of the things that we wanted to do, though, when ACEND was designing this degree, there were 5 areas of emphasis included, 5 areas of competencies. For everybody out there that's been part of a program and recognizes performance indicators and competencies, there are 5 domains for the competencies. They are advanced nutrition science, leadership, education, advocacy, and scholarship, research and scholarly activity. So a student gets to pick which area of those areas they want to really be their area of emphasis. Now, the coursework will meet all of the competencies, and so you'll get a broad range. But this gives you the option if you're interested in advocacy, which would be fantastic. I think sometimes if there's one area that dietitians really could ramp up, it's advocacy. And the idea of an advanced practice doctorate that can really let a student take that on and learn and develop in that area is fantastic. They will have the opportunity to do a residency in that area, and then their scholarly work can be part of that area. I've always had the really strong belief that one thing that I think in my lifetime I've seen us do that I think these type of degrees are going to help us with is we assume that people know how to do things that we haven't trained them to do. We train people very, very well to be clinicians and to be, wonderful dietitian, nutritionists, and they go out there and they do a fabulous job. But sometimes they move into leadership or they move into research, and we just kind of say, oh, go be a leader, go do research. I trained for like 9 years to learn how to do research. The fact that we can help this, we can train people. You deserve training and education to develop a new skill set. Leadership is a skill set. Advocacy is a skill set. Research is a skill set. And so these type of programs can help people develop those skill sets in order to advance their career. When I talk about meeting students when they are where they are, as far as our specific program, now that was kind of general thoughts. Our specific program, we did a lot of surveys. We collected a lot of feedback. We partnered with a company that could do nationwide surveys for us, regional surveys. What do people want? What do they want to do? And so we were very responsive to that feedback when we designed the program. One thing people wanted was 100% online. And so we designed a program that was 100% online. People wanted asynchronous, flexible, on their own time programs. And so that's what we designed. Given the type of person that may be pursuing this degree, they probably have a job. They probably have a family. They can't pick up and leave and go to class 3 times a week. They have a job. So we wanted to be very responsive to that kind of feedback to make it possible for everybody. They also wanted to be able to do the degree where they are. And so in designing the program, that was one thing that we took very seriously. As far as like there will, part of it, the accredited advanced practice degree is a residency, a certain number of hours of boots on the ground, like experiencing this, supervised experiential learning where you're experiencing it and therein lies the learning. People want to do that where they live. And so what we're doing is partnering with the institutions or the workplaces or wherever our students are to try and find them an appropriate mentor for whatever they're interested in, advocacy, leadership, education, whatever. If they can't find an appropriate mentor, we have backups at UNMC that can work with them distance-wise to give them the mentoring and the experiences that they want. But our primary goal is that we want you to do this where you are. We want you to learn from that person, but we also want you networking. And we want people seeing you. We want people seeing your work. Part of this is to create new opportunities for you. So stay where you are, do your great work there, get your name out there, and hopefully that will lead to advancement.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm glad that the meeting them where they are is both in the physical and the academic sense, because like you're meeting where they are based off of, what 5 domains of emphasis they want to focus on. Like you're meeting them where they are with where their interests lie. And then also physically with the online asynchronous aspect, where a lot of them are already, a couple of years into being a dietitian and wanting to increase that accessibility of having these higher level degrees. Because also when it comes to dietitians, I don't know if the statistic has changed at all, but around like 3% have PhDs, and I don't know if that expands into like
A doctoral of any type, I believe.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like
Yeah.
the percentage is so low, and so it's really great that your program is wanting to increase that accessibility while also balancing what is important regardless of whether or not it's in person or asynchronous, with that networking, actually getting boots on the ground. And one question that I had in regards to that is, you describe it as a residency where, we kind of similar to like a doctor, a doctor's residency where they get these rotations and these hours. Is there like a distinct, maybe written difference between what makes it a residency compared to those traditional dietetic internship hours that dietitians already have to receive, or kind of describing a little bit more into what the residency hours look like in comparison to those like DI hours that dietitians have to get now?
Right. Well, a certain number of residency hours is required by ACEND in order to complete the program. And I'm not sure I would say the right number off the top of my head, so I won't give the exact number. But that is the real do one learning. You've been through all these classes and things like that. So this is where you go do it. Go implement the things that you've learned. Show us what you can learn. As far as your about how is that different than the like the entry to practice internship, those types of supervised experiential practice hours. I think the main difference would be the level that you're working at and the amount of autonomy that you have. In our program, it would be the flexibility. Like I talked about, certainly these people have to work this around jobs and lives and things like that. Most of us, when we did our internship or our entry to practice program, that's all we did for a year, 2 years, whatever. So we don't envision this working this way. This is something that you do mixed in on top of in collaboration with your workplace. However you and your mentor can design these hours to get you this experience. And so we see it very driven by the experience. We see it that there is an outcome of this residency, that the outcome is I now become really, really good at X. Let's say maybe your dream is to have my job and I want to be a program director, but you have no idea what accreditation standards are. Maybe your residency program really becomes being involved in a self-study, helping write a self-study, really getting immersed in the standards, learning how to evaluate a curriculum, learning how to implement changes, things like that. So I think that's how it would, does that get at your question of how would it differ from?
Absolutely. Yeah. Because I think it's mainly for in case listeners are coming in and they're hearing, oh, here's just like another degree to have to add to my to-do list, or oh, more residency hours to have to add to my to-do list. It's kind of drawing in and you're doing it beautifully with the why does it matter? What is the purpose? Kind of like really making sure that students who may be interested in an advanced practice doctorate know the purpose of the residency, like what makes it stand apart from other doctoral degrees and the benefits that they may get. But I think the example that you gave was a really great example of how it's tailored to the experience and the outcome that you want to have based off of it. And going back to what you said of meeting students where they are, based off of what they want to get out of the program, where their interests lie, and really maxing out the networking experience and the outcomes that they want from the residency. So no, I think that's a great example. So
I think in our Intro to Practice master's degree program, when we ask the students when they come in, what are the two things, or we ask them, what are the three things about the program that scare you the most? Like what are the three things you really don't want to do while you're here? They don't want to do a capstone. That scares them. And then the other thing we do is a staff experience for a month where basically they are taking on the role of one of the dietitians under their guidance, but actually, independently carrying some of that workload. And that's the other thing that scares them and that they're nervous about. When we ask them at the end of the program, what were the three best experiences? Capstone, staff experience. I think this will be the same way. A residency, your first reaction is, I don't want to. I don't know how I'm going to manage that. I don't know how that's going to work. What does that look like? It's new, it's scary. At the end of the day, it's going to be one of the most beneficial things about the program.
Absolutely. Like typically and again, this is within certain reasoning, but typically whatever scares you the most, you should lean into that because that's where you'll get the most.
Growing.
Exactly. That's where the growth lies. And I think having the residency component, the 5 different domains, and really a very individualized approach for the students, it allows that opportunity for growth but it also requires the student to recognize what's the scariest thing, like what's the thing that I'm most like on the fence about. And I think it's really important too for people to hear that now, so that if they're interested in this down the road, they can do some of that self-analysis, self-reflection of like, which domain would I be interested in? Or where do I think I could grow the most? And kind of speaking on the students, or because like, for example, with the Advanced Practice Doctoral Standards with ACEND, you do have to be a registered dietitian. A registered dietitian for a certain number of years. And so when it comes to people who may be interested in your program, and because you already have a cohort and you already kind of can see some people who have applied to the program and are doing the program, are there certain career paths in dietetics or professional backgrounds that you believe would be better suited for this advanced practice degree through ACEND compared to maybe other niches in dietetics? Because dietetics is huge. Like you can do a million and one different things.
Yes.
Yeah, you can do so many different things. And so for this advanced practice doctorate, because like with what you said, you can focus on different domains, different niches, really kind of dial in on a specific interest. And this can also just be purely observational from what you've seen, but are there common like threads or commonalities in the backgrounds that you've seen people apply to your program, or just who do you think would be a good fit for the program?
That is a great question. And there is not a one-word answer. Originally, when we started, now we don't have a huge cohort. We've only taken just 1 year so far. It's been much more diverse than I expected. We have students that are interested in focusing on education, students that are interested in focusing on leadership, students that are interested in focusing on advanced nutrition science. And like you said, that's the beauty of it, that you can come in because dietetics is so huge. And that is part of why we need degrees like this, because you have so many different areas that you can move into, that you need somewhere to go that can help train you to set you up for success as you branch out a little bit in these new areas. So I've been really happy to see that we are seeing people that are maybe in education jobs that are recognizing they may work in a university system or in some sort of educational system, and they're recognizing it will benefit me to have a doctorate in this environment, and that will benefit my career. That's how I can move up. I know I want to advance, and I really don't want a PhD. I really don't want to spend time in a research lab. I don't want a research career. That's not the track I'm on. I know people in the past have done it because that was the option to get a doctorate. There weren't very many options like this. So I anticipate that it will open the door for a lot of those people in academia that say, I really like the education part of this. That's where I live. That's what I want to do. And now this gives me the opportunity to follow up and get some advanced practice training on that. Given the trajectory that clinical nutrition is on, I think it's also going to be very, very attractive for people who work in clinical settings because our practice has advanced so much. And I think that's just going to continue at an exponential rate. Every single time I turn around in my own work, there's a new omics word. And so it seems like lately I've just had to learn new omics things. I mean, we started out with maybe genomics, and now we have epigenomics, proteomics, transcriptomics, lipidomics. All of this directly impacts us very, very directly. And it's really hard to keep up. I mean, AI will change our field just the same way it will change everybody else's field. And so clinical nutrition is also going to keep barreling forward with the amount of knowledge that we have to keep up with. So I think and hope and I guess expect that people coming in are going to be spread out across all 5 domains.
Yeah, definitely. And especially with the individualized component of each student maybe coming in from different vantage points, different career paths, different goals. And I think that is, again, the beauty of it, where you can really make it what you want to make it. And yes, it may have prominence in a clinical setting, but if you really want to stick to education, that's totally fine. If you want to stick to research or advocacy, that's totally fine too. It's really, I think it's like you just kind of grow where you're planted. And it sounds like that's really what this program offers, which is great. And as far as, because there's been a lot of different mixed reviews about the master's degree requirement in dietetics and how that's just an additional investment, more money on the table that they have to invest, just kind of an extra step towards getting that RD credential. And someone may be listening and hear this program opportunity as a really great step in their own career and something that they may be interested in pursuing. But do you have any advice or insights to those who may be interested but are maybe worried about that additional step or that additional financial investment? And it could come in the lens of like what would be the return on this investment, kind of expanding on why it would be worth doing a program like this if you're genuinely interested and maybe not just getting so focused on the finances or those barriers.
Oh, I get it. That was the third thing that came up in our survey that I didn't mention before. Like, what do people care about? They care about, like, is it online? Is it accessible? Is it flexible? Can I stay here? And they care about the cost. And, unfortunately, there's only so much that programs can do about the cost. That degrees cost money. And I hope as this moves forward that the academy, any foundations, things like that, will make scholarships available to people to help them move forward with this if this is something they want to do. I definitely hope there will be opportunities. If workplaces offer tuition reimbursement, then that's always helpful. It's not an easy question, and it's one of the questions that potential students will ask you all the time. And not even potential students. Anybody that you're talking to about this will ask you, well, am I going to make more money? And I think just in life, just confidentially between you and me and every single person that's going to listen to this, people say sometimes really strange things to you when you decide to make a change in your life. When I decided to go get my PhD, when I told people I'm going to start working on my PhD, there were 2 groups of people. And one group of people said, why are you doing that? You're never going to make any more money. There's nowhere to go with that. Nothing's going to change. It's just a waste of your time. And then there was a second group of people that said, awesome. I think that's cool. This is going to be fun. What can I do to support you? And at the time, I mean, I was hearing all of that. And I very literally thought about it and thought, which group of people do I want to be like? I mean, and that was part of my decision. Who do I want to be like? Do I want to be these people or these people? And I think I'm just going to go ahead and do this. One of the other things that helped me make a decision when I was trying to make this decision, because certainly the finances influenced me and certainly the time commitment. I had 2 young kids and I was working full time. I told you I was working in the NICU. I would have been happy in the NICU for the rest of my life. If I had gotten a PhD, stayed in the NICU, used that to quantify outcomes of premature infants, things like that, that would have been a great way to spend my career. I knew what would happen in my career if I didn't pursue my doctorate, and that was fine. I had no idea what was going to happen if I did. You can't see the doors that open for you until you're there. And I look back and I just think of everything I would have missed if I hadn't done it. It's been hard work. It's been, definitely there are times that are challenging, but putting yourself out there, growing, developing, the people you get to meet, the things you get to do, you look back and you say, that was absolutely worth it. And I am so grateful I didn't miss it, I guess. And so I would just encourage people that you have to make your own decision. You don't know, and nobody can guarantee you what's going to come of this. But you probably have a pretty good idea what you'll be doing 20 years from now if you don't pursue it. And so that I think that's really all I can say about that. It's a very personal decision. It's a hard decision. It's a very real decision. I mean, at the time of recording this, I'm sure this podcast will be so popular that people will be listening to it, a decade from now. But at the time we're recording this, all the news is about egg prices, and egg prices are $5, $7 a dozen, something like that. It's really hard to say, should I invest a couple $100 a credit hour, whatever you might be looking at, times however many credit hours to go get this when I can't afford eggs. So, so we totally get it. And it is an investment for sure. And you just have to decide if you can live with the uncertainty at the end. But the opportunities are amazing. And I think they'll continue to grow.
Yeah, and I think that's the best answer that you could give, especially with a question as dense as that, just because it's so multifactorial. There's so many different things that go into pursuing a higher education for career advancement, for more opportunities. And I think you sharing your own personal experience and making your own decision for pursuing a PhD is really the best way to answer the question, because everyone has their own reasons for pursuing higher education and everyone has their own unique reasons for saying yes or saying no. And I think really the best way to answer it is just sharing your story and sharing the fact that no one else can make the decision for you. That doesn't mean that you can't go out, talk to people, ask questions, learn more about it, make a calculated decision. But yeah, you truly don't know what's on the other side until you're on the other side. And I think you provided a lot of great questions that people can ask themselves that can help them make that decision. Because, for example, even for me, like I switched from a master's degree to a direct PhD. And what helped me move in that direction was I kept on hopping between what I thought I would be thinking 10 years from now versus what I was thinking in the present moment. And someone that I was talking to, she was like, Jenna, you can really only make a decision based off of who you are now. Like you can't guarantee what you'll be thinking 10 years from now, 15 years, 20 years from now. You can't lean on that. Because for me, I was thinking of like, oh, I'll just do a PhD later because I felt like I wasn't ready now. And hearing that with it was hearing well, if you want to do it and the only thing holding you back is thinking that you're not ready. It's kind of the answer presented itself after hearing that. So no, it's definitely helpful hearing how other people made the decisions, because you can take that to help you make your own decision. But again, it's like that's the human experience, as you really don't know until you try. And it's okay to not know everything. And typically things tend to work out as long as you go with what you want to do and not doing what people tell you. Like, for example, the people who told you that, oh, pursuing a PhD wasn't going to make you any more money, like they were kind of giving you those more kind of negative perspectives towards pursuing it. You did it because you did it because you wanted to, not just because of what those people were saying or because of the money, things like that. You had more intrinsic motivations. And so all that to say, I do think, yeah, it's a hard decision, but the investment, especially with how you've described the efforts that's gone into this program, the goals that you have for the students, how individualized it is. If it's a program that you're interested in and you're willing to put in the work, then the outcome is going to speak for itself. And like you get what you put into it and that type of thing. So
absolutely.
No,
yes.
really, really great. Yeah. And kind of going more towards into the program itself, because I think, again, that's just like really great soft skills or soft questions for people to think about in any decision making process in their career. But going more into the program, you mentioned how it's online, asynchronous, incredibly flexible, kind of focusing more on that too, that can kind of help alleviate someone's worries about like, oh, should I do it? Should I not do it? Well, the flexibility is a great reason to do it. So kind of describing a little bit more the online asynchronous structure of it. Like, how do you ensure that the instruction is, of high quality still? Because like with COVID, a lot of people switch to online asynchronous, but kind of especially for an advanced practice doctorate, what do like some of the assignments look like, or like the flow of instruction, things like that? You talked a little bit about the residency, but diving a little bit deeper into the curriculum.
Yeah, absolutely. So I talked about the 5 areas. So basically the program is composed of maybe 3 courses in each area, 2 to 3 courses that focus on that. As far as the quality of instruction, I'm in the College of Allied Health Professions at the University of Nebraska Medical Center. And we have a long history of successful online education way prior to COVID. We have a director of distance education. So we have the infrastructure to support us. This is not just me sitting in my office with my laptop trying to teach online courses. We have extensive resources. We have personnel dedicated to helping us, and we have definitely quality metrics to really make sure that we're doing it well. The college offers a online master's of healthcare teaching and technology and a master's of health delivery science. And so we've been educating healthcare professionals online for quite a bit of time. The courses that are taught out of, I can speak mainly to the courses that are taught out of the nutrition courses that are taught out of our division. When we built the courses, we came back to the idea of flexibility and making things meaningful to the students. And so the courses are designed around modules. And in each course, there's lots of interaction with the instructor built in. We're also a small faculty. We're a very strongly networked faculty with other people at our partner institution, our clinical affiliate, Nebraska Medicine, and other faculty. Let's just take one of our courses in advanced nutrition sciences, and let's say that one of the modules that the student is going to have to work on is emerging concepts. And so the assignment is write a white paper, find 3 to 5 valid references around an emerging concept target, and then you design a white paper that would 1 to 2 page summary of how people in your area can use this emerging concept. So let's just take the concept of, we could take AI, or we could take nutrigenomics. So we may have a student who says, I'm really, really interested in the interaction between nutrition and genetics. I'm going to try to find some current literature, and I'm going to write a 1 to 2 page white paper that could help dietitians who work where I work understand how to incorporate genetics into their practice. I might say that's a fantastic project, and I know enough to be dangerous about that. I'm going to go over to our genetic counseling program and get the director of genetic counseling to come on over here and give you some thoughts, give you some feedback, help you design this, help you make sure you're on track. It's coming back to, we want the work that they're doing to matter to them in their workplace. We have gotten very, very good feedback from our cohort of students on this, because the work that they're doing for their degree, they're taking back to their jobs, and it's helping them there too. We've had students that have designed new programs to implement in the population of patients that they work with. And then we move on and help them evaluate and assess it and measure the outcomes of that. And then we move on and we help them disseminate those outcomes in a way that other people can learn from what they've done. So every step of the program is really designed around the individual ability to really help the student excel where they are and where they want to go.
No, definitely. And I think it's great how you show how the curriculum applies directly into their work. And what I saw on, the program website is that there's full-time and part-time options for the program. However, for most people going into the program, is it just assumed that they are working while they're doing the program? Gotcha. Yeah, because
I don't anticipate, I would be surprised if we ever had a full-time student. To tell you the truth. We put it on the website because we put it on the website. If anybody wants to see a full-time schedule, that's what it would look like. But no, we anticipate that 99% of our students are going to be part-time.
Yeah, and I think
and they're working and they take a semester off, maybe. They take 2 courses at a time, then they take 1 course, then they take a semester off. I mean, they do this at the pace that works for them.
Yeah, and I think it's great having that flexibility too, because it makes it a little less daunting as well. Because sometimes it could just be, hey, maybe you first chip away a couple of classes and then you're like, okay, now I'm ready to take on a little bit more. Or say, hey, they have a really heavy next couple of months at work, take a break for a semester, come back to it. It's really nice that they're able to lean into that flexibility, but still when they're in it, they get really great impact from it that also benefits their workplace. And hopefully, like what you were saying earlier about some workplaces, hopefully doing some like tuition reimbursement, a great incentive would be, hey, these assignments are helping us improve the systemic workflow of this department. And like, you know, maybe over the semesters, you could like present to your supervisor being like, hey, this program has helped us improve XYZ, like again, helping with the research aspect, quantifying different outcomes, showing, you know, the progressive improvement. That could be another way to kind of maybe reduce that barrier, or even advocating for, hey, could I have a couple Fridays off in a month to just work on classes or to work more on this degree. And that's just something that came to mind, just seeing the benefits of it almost being like a symbiotic relationship.
It should be. That'd be ideal. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's really great to hear how the assignments, even in that online asynchronous format, you lean into what they do have in-person access to, which is really, really great. And the next thing, kind of with what you mentioned with the department, how you're within the Department of Allied Health professions and things like that, and how you have a really good history of like online remote work and things like that, specifically to the Doctorate in Nutrition and Dietetics. There's another common gripe that some dietitians have is that you did mention how over the years we have increased like where we sit at the table, like there's more recognition of dietitians, which is really great. Just for your insight and what you know about the Doctorate in Nutrition and Dietetics now, is it known with other allied health professions? Like are other, like for example, PAs, medical doctors, how familiarized are other healthcare professionals for this degree? And like more importantly, will people feel like they will have the recognition that they deserve from other allied health professions, or how can they make sure that they do get the recognition they deserve with this advanced practice doctorate?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. That's huge. I think it's a 2-pronged answer to that question, because it will take time. It is going to take time for people to recognize that dietitians now have these sort of options available to them, and that there are these sort of advanced practice options. On the other hand, though, I think that allied health professionals especially have become very, very familiar with the professional doctorate concept. And I mean, I think we've done the work that we've needed to do, not me. I mean, our profession and allied health professions in general have done the work that we need to do to distinguish a professional doctorate from a PhD, and that there are value in both. That there's not one that's easier or harder or more valuable. They develop different skill sets. And so I think that work has been done. And a lot of the allied health professions have gone to, well, gosh, PT and OT now have entry to practice doctorate degrees, pharmacy. So it's very, very common in allied health professions. The PA profession right now is leaning really heavily into, I think what they're kind of seems to me like what they're kind of coalescing around is the Doctorate of Medical Science. That's what they're calling their doctorate degree. It's not a part of their entry-level training yet. It's an, additional training. I think the work that lies in front of us to some extent is the differentiation between an entry to practice doctorate and an advanced practice doctorate. And this is an advanced practice doctorate. As far as I know, you've interviewed Rayanne, and I think as far as I've heard from ACEND has no intention of moving to entry to practice doctorate. I mean, that at this point in time is not on the table. And that does seem to be a distinction that people have to think through a little bit. We are not saying you have to get a doctorate. Not at all. This is optional. Nobody has to do it that doesn't want to do it. It's an option for people that it would benefit and that want to do it. But everybody's doing great. All the people out there, the clinicians, you are doing great work. That, there is no one is saying that we need to ramp up the entry to practice work or the development that just takes place through experience and over time. The clinicians who work at Nebraska Medicine are absolutely brilliant and lead the world in what they do. We're not saying we needed to change your program to a doctorate level. Like, this it's an option out there for further professional development and training if you decide that's the path for you. So I think some of the work that needs to occur is within our own profession, that distinction, the entry to practice doctorate versus the advanced practice doctorate. I think other professions actually are ahead of us in conceptualizing that. So it'll be nothing new to them. They recognize it.
No, definitely. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, when it comes to the domain of advocacy, like, yes, there's the policy advocacy component, but I believe, like, with advocating, it's not just exclusive to policy or things like that. It's advocating for yourself in the profession, and then, like, and in
Your
tandem with the
patients.
leadership. Yeah, like if the more leadership roles you pursue, not only is a byproduct more money, but it's also like that recognition of, hey, dietitians do have a seat at the table, and hey, this advanced practice doctorate gave me the skill sets that I needed to uplift and go to these higher positions, to be more recognized, to have that mobility for more pay, more recognition, and not recognition in the like, ooh, look at me kind of way, but just recognition in the, hey, we have a lot of important skill sets as dietitians. Like with what you mentioned, the whole progression of the RDA from one tiny book to who knows how many books it could fill now, where the amount of skill set and knowledge that we have a lot that we can bring to the table. And it sounds like the advanced practice doctorate, like with what you said, when you are advanced into your career, it allows you to kind of move up and expand with all that knowledge and show other allied health professions how much nutrition knowledge there is and how messy it can get. We've already seen how messy it can get, and then especially with AI and like, it can definitely get messy. And so it's really good having like dietitians in almost all spaces because of us being the highest level of nutrition professionals out there. But I think you bring up an excellent point with where that can go and how it really starts with the profession itself, where if you keep talking outward about, oh, like, we have to go, like, they keep pushing up the requirements for education, the pay's not changing, yada yada yada. Rayanne and I talked about this a lot, where it starts with the practitioner, like it starts with the dietitian and us unifying in order to move us all up. Because then another thing too is, if we're all arguing over how things should be, other allied health professions are going to see how not unified we are, and they're going to be like, well, they're doing whatever they're doing, and we're going to keep them over there. Because it's very interesting seeing and knowing how being unified can help move us up instead of all those different types of things. But yeah, and
Absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah.
And
I think to build on that just a little bit, there are going to be people out there who don't support this. Like you said, don't support this idea, or, don't, like you said, just another credential adding on to education, stuff like that. I think to those people, I would say that's totally fine. You don't have to do it. It's totally fine, but support it, because if we don't get our arms around this, somebody out there will. Just in my position, I get calls all the time from somebody who says, I have this sort of a nutrition degree, some sort of not accredited, kind of sketchy, a little, nutrition degree, and now I want to come do X, Y, and Z. If we don't own nutrition, somebody else will. Everybody thinks they know nutrition. Everybody does. And then it's ubiquitous. It's everywhere. It's part of everybody's scope of practice, because PTs talk about nutrition. Certainly physicians talk about nutrition, PAs. If we don't own it and say, no, we have our own career ladder, we have our own development, we have accreditation to guarantee consistency and protect the public in what is being taught, then we lose. our profession will not be able to move forward. And that's what's going to move us all forward. Like you mentioned, exactly like you mentioned, is the cohesiveness, us all standing together and saying, we are the nutrition experts. We own this. We are the people at the table who have the expertise to manage this. And this is just one more step in owning that. You don't have to do it, but please try to wrap your head around it and support it.
No, and I think that's such a great distinction too, because just like with a PhD, not everyone's meant to get a PhD, and
Exactly.
that's good, because if everyone had a PhD, then who would be in the NIC?
Then what does it mean?
Yeah,
Right.
exactly. Yeah, like who would be boots on the ground doing the different things that don't require a PhD and things like that. So every role has a purpose, and leaning into that. And it sounds like that's what the advanced practice doctoral degree does, is it opens up more opportunities to lean into a role that you may be interested in that your baseline clinician role that you currently have doesn't offer. But it's okay too to the person next to you if they stay in that role and that's their career. Because again, like going all the way back, it is completely individualized on what it
Yes.
is that you want.
And they're all valuable. It's not a
Mhm,
question of one being more valuable than the other. They're just different. It's
yeah,
just different skills. That's all it is.
mhm. No, really, really great, really, really great. And I really like how the discussion that we've had has both been like the practical implications of the advanced practice doctorate, while also still weaving more into the discussion of what does it mean in general, what's its importance, and adding the other layer of every dietitian is important, regardless of if they have a higher degree than the other.
Absolutely. Yes.
And I just hope that this helps move into the direction of unity, like we were talking about, where every role is just as important as the next. It's mainly just finding new ways and new avenues to push the entire profession forward. And so the final question, just to kind of close everything together, and we have kind of talked about this a little bit like here and there, but just to tie it all in a nice little bow, is what are your specific hopes for the future of this doctorate nutrition and dietetics program, and how do you see it shaping the field of dietetics? We mentioned it a little bit, but kind of to just send it home.
Yes. I guess short term, I would hope that it does for our students what we hope it is designed to do, that it helps them take the next step in their career. Yeah, so we hope that this helps people achieve the goals that they have in their own career and their own professional development. I hope it becomes accepted and well recognized. And I said I've been doing this long enough that I can see how our practice has changed. It would be great. Who knows if I'll live another 35 years, but yeah, but in the last 35 years, be great after the next 35 years. If I could look back and say that the the trajectory that we were on that first 35 years was the second 35 years, it even took off even more. There are more dietitians. They have a wider scope of practice, both breadth and depth in their scope of practice. They own nutrition. There are no threats to that. We're well recognized. We're well reimbursed, as far as receiving reimbursement as well as our compensation. We're well compensated for what we do. It would be great to be able to look back and really pinpoint that this helped. This little thing that we put together actually helped with that. There will be lots of things that it takes. That takes, like you said, it takes individuals, it takes all of us working together. It takes all of us to, really keep owning our field, moving it forward, advocating for ourselves. But it would be great to be able to look back and say, this mattered. We did something and it mattered. I think that's always your hope, right?
And I think that's a great thing to end on too, and that, it starts with a student applying and making the most of that program. And I think University of Nebraska Medical Center's Doctorate in Nutrition and Dietetics offers a great avenue for those that are interested. So thank you so much, Dr. Hanson, for talking about your program, the benefits of this new degree avenue for aspiring RDs, and how it's just something that they can think about as they become a registered dietitian, ways that they can expand their scope, and the really great opportunities that are exciting to see where it goes. And I'll also include like the link to your program in the description as well, if people just
Great.
want a
Perfect.
direct, straight shot into seeing what your program specifically looks like. I'm really glad that we were able to showcase it, especially being the first one with ACEND's new Advanced Practice Doctoral Standards. So again, thank you so much. It was such a pleasure.
Thank you.